Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar for World Childless Week. It's the last one of the week, and hopefully it will leave you some uplifting thoughts and feelings. I'm joined by three amazing people. I'll firstly say that I am Stephanie Joy Phillips, the founder of World Childless Week. But let me take you around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. So, Annie, would you like to do your introduction for me, please?
Hi everyone. It's really lovely to see so many people here. So my name is Annie Kirby. I'm a writer. I write novels and short stories, and I'm also a university research fellow in cybercrime and economic crime. So a bit slightly random, nothing completely separate to kind of the writing world and writing fiction. So I'm here from not very sunny Portsmouth at the moment.
Thank you. Kiara, would you like to introduce yourself?
I didn't know you did that. That is quite interesting.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, my name's Chiara Berardelli. I'm in Glasgow, in Scotland, where the sun has not shone all day. I'm a singer-songwriter, and yeah, I just write songs basically, and I'm a musician, and I work with people with sort of mental health problems and music. And because I write songs about what's going on for me, I've written quite a lot of songs about being involuntarily childless even. But yeah, it's lovely to be here and seeing where everyone is all over the world. It's fantastic.
I love the fact you just said, I just write songs.
Well, I couldn't think of anything else. What
Well,
else
we
do I
all just
do?
write songs. I don't think it's quite that easy. We just all pop a song out every day.
No, I definitely haven't written a new one for a while, so it isn't that easy, but that's another story, yeah.
Andy, would you like to do your introduction, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Andy. I'm in Lancaster in England as well. Um, I'm childless not by choice. With Michael, I run a men's group, but I'm also involved in Storyhouse Childlessness. Outside of childlessness, I'm a researcher into nature and well-being, which doesn't sound as exciting as Annie's research.
I still think it's
And
good. We're all animal lovers, aren't we? So I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
so yeah, it'd be nice to do something around pets, just so I can meet people's pets. I think that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Perfect job. And then go investigating later in the day. Do you know what I mean? Play the piano in the evening. We get everything involved in there. No, that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for that. Going to start off the conversation by actually going back in time a little bit and saying, who did we actually envision we would be when we thought that we would become parents? And what would that future look like? Is there anyone who would like to start a discussion and volunteer, or shall I pick one of you?
I'm happy to go.
Go for it.
Um, I I kind of always wanted to have four children, I think, because there's four of us. I've got three siblings. And then as I got older, I think in my 30s, I thought, no, two will probably do. But I don't know that I actually could, I don't know that I had an idea of what that would look like in the future. You know, really, I think it was just an idea that I know that I want this, and I come from a big family, and they'll just be, I think I thought I wanted lots of people around all the time, like my family was. And I wanted to, I kind of had this idea that I'd be cool mum, and I wanted to, be really involved in like my kids' social life and be like, yeah, whatever you want, it's all okay. You can do this, you can do that, which probably would not have been the case actually. But anyway, I think that's probably as far as I got with that really.
It's a case of like almost visualizing yourself as just fitting into where you see everybody else that's older than you, perhaps being the parents and the grandparents.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I envisaged what the rest of my life would have been like around that. I think
Mm.
that's, I suppose, what I'm saying. But I, definitely thought it'll be a busy, because that's what a family house is. It's a busy house. That's what it'll be. I think that's what I thought.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I get that. Do you know what I mean? I just
Mm.
thought with, you know what I mean? I always saw my gran at the top of the table, and then the kids, her kids, and then the grandkids. And it was, I imagined I'd go up that table and gradually be at the top of the table, be the one who's actually having the parties and things like that. So it's not as if you always necessarily envision it, but it's just what you feel inside.
Yeah.
Makes you see it around you, perhaps.
Yes, exactly. You've had the example, and because my parents are Italian, I think the kind of whole, although it's a bit different there in Italy, but the kind of family, children, intergenerational, like children are important. So, I mean, obviously they're important, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. Annie or Andy, would you like to say what you felt?
I'll go next. I was thinking about this question earlier, and I remember I was a teenager, and I guess it was the late 80s or the early 90s, and I was talking to my family about the millennium, the year 2000, which seemed so far away and into the future. And I just sort of remember saying, oh, what will we be doing in the millennium? And I was like, I'll be 28, so I'll probably have a couple of kids by then, which just seems so laughable now. But I just assumed that that's what my life would be like. And um, I had zero career aspirations. I left school when I was 16, got a job in an office, and I was just kind of jogging along, really waiting to become a mother. And I think I just thought, you can see that it's a bit of a fantasy because I never considered how I would pay for the huge house with all the children in, and they're my children's friends. And I just thought that I would be a stay-at-home mum with children coming in, like an open house. And I come from quite a small family. There's no aunts or uncles or cousins. I hope you can still hear me because my internet connection is telling me it's unstable. So I kind of really craved a big family, like a huge kind of extended family, which I didn't really have growing up. It was just my very small nuclear family that we had. So I was, I really craved, lots of children, in-laws, aunties, uncles, cousins, all of that really. And I guess, you don't really give it much thought. You just kind of expect that's what's going to happen. So I guess very kind of similar to Kiara. It's just didn't really think about how it would happen or anything like that. But that's just those assumptions that I had, that that's what life would look like.
Yeah, we don't question it, do we? Because you just assume that is what's going to happen, because we don't see the other side of things, like the fact that we're aware now that people don't see us. So we didn't see us as such as it was. And I think, was similar to me when I had this idealistic thought of meeting the perfect prince. Do you know what I mean? Getting married, having the house, having the 2.4 children. But it wasn't realistic. But I don't think realism is portrayed or given to us, because we're not told about infertility at school. We're told, be careful, don't fall pregnant. So it's always the reverse.
Yeah. And I mean, that was certainly very much the narrative at my school. In sex education classes, was all about don't get pregnant.
Same here.
And how careful you needed to be, and how you needed to behave. And like you said, there was just never any mention of that. What if the opposite of that happens? It's just, no pun intended, it was inconceivable almost that wouldn't happen. I didn't know any childless people. Well, I probably did, but I wasn't aware of knowing any childless people. Like you said, we're not seen, and back then I didn't see other people either.
Yeah, and it's weird that you mentioned the age of 28, because a memory that's come to me is that when I was in grammar school, and I think it would have been, like you say, early 80s, we had a teacher that we found out, this English teacher, and she was always dressed up really smart and trendy, and we were always like, oh God, yeah, she looks good. She used to wear bright red lipstick. I always remember she had bright red lipstick, and the makeup was perfect and everything else. And one day, everybody found out she was 28 years old. And it went around like, but she's still a miss. She hasn't got children and she's still a miss. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, how can she be that old?
Not married.
Not married, no children, And it was like unbelievable. And it was really, quite a bit of a rumor going around our school that this just seemed so weird and odd and not natural almost.
How things have changed in a generation, eh? To that, not being, who's going to bat an eyelid about that, really,
But it just
So,
shows, doesn't it, that like you said, the perceptions we had when we
mm,
thought we would become parents, we realised, do you know what I mean? We're on the other side now with that invisible layer that we didn't see. But now we see us because we're in it.
mm.
Really interesting, really quite strange as well. So, Andy, what's your thoughts on this?
It's interesting. There's bits of Annie's and Kira's in there as well. But when I read the question, the words that came up were like whole, together, and belonging. And then
Yeah,
later on, when I was looking at the other questions, just to sort of think about this, was it'd be colourful, it'd be fun. But there wasn't a great appeal of thought of who I'd be, other than this made sense because we've got a house, we were married, this is what happens next, you have kids. Went to a Catholic high school and it was basically don't look at girls, you're getting pregnant. But it's like say there's like no like sort of like this would never happen that you wouldn't have kids. And
no,
so but it's strange really because I'm a twin, so when I say we, I mean my brother and I. We did have like childless aunts and uncles, but I didn't realize at the time. But both my parents had friends who didn't have kids, and later on, especially when my wife and I were going through this, found out they were childless, not by choice. And it was strange how that was hidden just by being an aunt and an uncle. But none of that thinking came into it. It's just an assumption that I'd be a parent, hopefully be a good parent, hopefully a fun dad. I think there was a bit of like, I probably let my kids go off to extremes where I was like tightly held. But definitely colourful was in there, which is a really interesting one, I think.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It was like we've got these ideas, but they're not like, oh, I'm writing them down and thinking about them. But we're almost going with the flow,
Yeah, it's
the
almost
flow
like,
of life and seeing family around us
yeah.
where we thought we'd
What you
be.
said, Andy, about the belonging, it's funny because I would never have known that that was part of it
mm,
until, coming out the other side and it doesn't work out. For me, the belonging to the family unit, my own family unit, I think was really important, a really important part of it. But I would never have been able to have said that. I didn't even know what that was really
mm,
when I was younger. But I suppose when you don't get it or find it, then you know what you've lost or missed out on, or whatever. And
Mm.
I totally, it sort of almost goes without saying, really, if it works out that you belong, and
mm.
your family. So yeah, I think that's a big, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big thing, I think.
like I say, it's words that we thought of but didn't actually express because they were just, as you say, they were just part of us. They were absorbed into us. They were family around us, and we would be family with them. And you didn't have to
Yeah,
think about it. It wasn't complicated because that was the way you expected your life to just go.
Mm, mm,
Really weird because I said, for me, it was like seeing my gran at the head of the table, and I thought one day I'd be there, but I didn't necessarily think about how I'd get there or the stages in between. In the way it was just I'd be
no,
at one day the one
mm,
hosting the family parties, which is one bit I say is that when I got my first house, I went out and the very first day I went shopping, I bought two sets of cutlery. One set was for general use, and one set was to put aside, nice and smart, but we bought out for family parties. And then I went out and bought four crystal glass bowls because I needed them because in our parties, my gran always had, we'd always have jelly, trifle, blancmange, and tin fruit. So I needed four bowls because that was what I envisioned was the future. But I didn't necessarily fill in the little gaps in between. But that was almost like the end result of where I thought I would be. So
mm,
it's strange, isn't it? Like we didn't really think that much into it.
mm.
But yeah, so before we go on to the next question, Kiara, would you like to introduce what you're going to do for us, please?
Yes. I would like to play you a song from an album that I wrote and released about 6 years ago now, called Sea Monster, which was basically I started writing, as I said, songs about what was happening, and then I sort of decided to turn it into an album all about childlessness. So it was a bit like a tribute. I felt there was enough songs that I could make a whole album out of it, and so that's what I did. So this song is called Deep Space Hibernation, and I wrote it when I was probably sort of deep, well, after being deep in the grief. I found it quite difficult to write anything when I was feeling that way, but I heard something on the radio all about the Rosetta mission, which was all about landing on a probe. Well, I always get this stuff wrong, but anyway, somewhere in space, landing something somewhere in space. And they put the Rosetta probe to sleep for 2 years. And then this day they were waking her up to keep going with the mission, like she had to go to sleep to recharge her batteries. And I remember thinking, because I kind of had this feeling that I knew I was going to be all right, mainly because people on the Gateway Women's site that were further on were kind of saying, you know, you start to come out the other end. So I just thought, if I could just go to sleep for 2 years and just miss out all the pain, I'll be fine. I'll just come out the other side. So this is Deep Space Hibernation.
She froze. Oh gosh. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. She's a robot out in space, been sleeping for 2 whole years, resting her metal, turning energy for what lies ahead. Deep space hibernation, that's the name. Deep space hibernation, nursing the flame. Fire in my soul has been burning so low, I'm leaking like a sieve. There's no joy in me, got no love to give. Deep space hibernation is what I need. Deep space hibernation sounds good to me. It's not that I want life to stop, it's more I'd like to get off. And maybe if I buy some time, I'll get back my peace of mind. Today is the day they wake her up, and cautiously they wait to see her fly, chasing comets across night skies.
Thank you, Kiara. Yeah, it does feel like she'd be doing that. But thank you as well for explaining the story and the meaning behind the song and what it means to you, because it gives more depth and relevance as well to us, that we can sort of relate to it and go, yeah, sometimes all you want to do is actually sleep through the grief,
Yeah,
about the other side of it.
I had a really, yeah, I just didn't want to come out, of my cocoon.
Mm. So we'll give you a little break from sort of singing rather than speaking at the moment. Andy, I'd like to come to you first with this one. Shocked. Which we're doing a twist now on the original question, where we asked, who did you think you would be and what your future would hold when you thought you'd become a parent? But how did that change when you suddenly found out that you would not be a parent?
It's almost like the opposite, where it's felt very broken, very lost, very floating. It's interesting, the deep space hibernation idea felt like very much untethered from my world, our world, and Rach and I were together, but it felt like we were apart because we're trying to understand our own grief while also trying to support each other with each other's grief. And it feels like navigate a country we had no map for, didn't share the language with, and we're just sort of really quite lost. And I think it's weird because definitely didn't think that was going to be a possibility of not having kids, and therefore didn't have to think about, well, what would that look like or how would that be? But when you're in it, it feels very much, you're very in the feelings, very in the intensity, and definitely, yeah, that sense of just wanting perhaps to sleep it away. Our cats at the time certainly didn't let that happen. They wanted their food and cuddles, which was great, lifesavers. But I think for me, which will relate to the poem I read later, was there was a sense of wanting to run away. So I sort of used running quite a lot to process, but also maybe just to sort of to move, not to be stuck.
Yeah.
So often, but yeah, it didn't always work. Yeah, it's an odd one because the first one you sort of like didn't think about it much, but it was quite dreamlike. This one I can tell as I sort of look back on it, it's still got that flavor of a nightmare, still sore.
And it's weird how, like, initially it was a case of, well, we just float into being parents. We don't think about it, it just happens.
Mm.
But already the description you've given of what that future is when you know you're not going to have a parent, not going to be a parent, is almost more descriptive, and there's more to say about it.
Yeah,
Even though originally there wasn't much in the future.
definitely.
And in a way, the grief is there's not much in the future, but we can say more about it.
Mm. Yeah, you live it. That's the thing where the other one is that's going to become your life. So you don't sort of almost, we have a language for it. It's like you get married, you'll have a family. Where if that doesn't happen, you have to create something, which is obviously the point of this webinar. And yeah, at the time, it's very lived and very emotive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting to think the comparison and where we go. Yeah. Thank you. Annie, would you like to share how it was for you?
Yeah, so I relate very much to what Andy said about feeling untethered and not having a map, or I think I've always thought about it in terms of all the landmarks for the future, or like the signposts, or like I guess all the things that people post about on Facebook about their children, like, first words, first day at school, first day at university, weddings, and all of those kind of things. And so it's not just about missing out on the baby stuff. It's that whole roadmap for your entire future, from parent of a newborn to maybe a grandparent, or the parent of an adult child, all of those things. So I certainly felt lost, and I couldn't envision a future. And I mean, I started trying to become a mother when I was 26. I still had that 22 years I had to get to my age 28 target. And I gave up on my 42nd birthday. I mean, realistically, I knew before then it wasn't going to happen, but that's the day that kind of I gave up any hope. And I was in Sicily at a conference, and I should have been having the time of my life. It was my 42nd birthday. I'm in Sicily. Someone else is paying for me to go to this amazing place and speak at this conference. And I put something funny on Facebook about I'm 42, so I'm the answer to life, the universe, and everything, which you'll understand if you like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But inside, I was just falling apart. I was lost. I just couldn't envision what the future looked like. Just had no frame of reference for it. And I don't mind saying that I had a breakdown, and I became seriously ill because I was so lost and so untethered, to use that word again. And it took me a long time. It took me years to recover, and writing a book to kind of recover and build back up to having any kind of vision of the future. I think that loss of what I had envisioned just I don't know. I really was. I really did lose myself. I don't mind saying among friends here that I lost myself. I left my job. I'd lost all interest in everything. I didn't really get off my sofa for about a year. And then I just gradually started to to write and to heal through writing. But to be honest, that's something, I'll be honest, I'll say I still struggle with that. I still struggle with envisioning a future as a non-parent. And as many positives that there are in my life, I think I will always struggle a little bit with that vision of the future. It's always a bit blurry and fuzzy for me now.
Yeah. But again, it's weird because all of a sudden, when you're childless, you can see the firsts, all those little steps that you wanted to have.
Yeah.
But when describing what we thought parenting would be, we didn't necessarily think of all those little first steps.
No, you take them for granted, I suppose.
Yeah. But suddenly they're like flashing neon in front of you, and you can see everybody else is celebrating those things, and you're just sitting and watching from afar. So again, we sort of fill in what we wanted, the positives that we can see other people having that we can't have when we've got this grey grief hanging around us and stuff.
It takes me back to what Kira and Andy have already said about belonging, and I think I implied it as well when I was talking about wanting that big kind of extended family and that sense of belonging, and that being on the outside, like knocking on the door, but never being able to open that door and go through it. And yeah, I guess, I'm still only just through that door. And I don't really know where the pathway is going still, but I just I think that's okay. I think I'm okay with not really knowing too much about what the future.
And I think maybe a good way of saying is you get those saloon doors that swing back and forward, and you see them in kitchens, and it's always like we've come out from one side to the other, but they can still swing, and we can go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So the grief can come through, but so can the happiness, and it's a bit of a mix between the two rooms.
It's interesting talking. So I keep losing you. You all keep freezing, which is annoying me. It's interesting talking about like going back and thinking about like the deep grief, and because it's not something like I do very often. Like you're always trying to sort of move on, and because that that really really deep grief has passed, although you still have it. Well, I still dip into it, but I think I did a very good job of pretending to myself that everything was going to be all right. And but I remember when I was 40 and that feeling, and what you were saying about the just the hitting, just the point, all the points that you thought you were supposed to be and you weren't there. And I just remember feeling like, oh my God, what the hell do I do now?
It's like a different void, isn't it? When you think you're going to be a parent, it's just a happy future. And then when you think you're not going to be a parent, it's a bit of a grey void. So it changes, it's filled in different ways. Yeah, that's hard.
I think one thing that's really helped me is to acknowledge that that kind of future we talked about at the beginning, that vision of parenthood was a fantasy. It was only the nice
Mm,
bits of parenthood.
You're
And
right.
that's bit I was quite resistant, to acknowledging that there were any kind of less positive sides to parenthood because it was something I wanted so much. But that is something that I've worked really hard on over the last 10 years. And it's kind of helped me to remind myself that what I'm grieving, what I lost, a lot of it was not real. It was like a rose-tinted version of the future that I had, um, that had all of the hard bits kind of blurred out a little bit. But yeah, it's what you said about saloon doors as well is definitely true. You can kind of step back. You can think, oh, I'm jogging along, things are really good, everything's great, and then I don't know, there's a little bit of a baby boom at my workplace at the moment, and it's affected me more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'll I'll take a couple of steps back, and then I'll take 5 or 6 forward.
Yeah.
And I'll be okay.
Do the cha-cha-cha, I always say.
Yeah.
Steps forward, steps back, but as long as you keep moving forwards more than backwards, and you're going in the right direction, even if it's slower than you perhaps like it to be. Yeah, that's for sure. Right, so Andy, would you like to introduce what you're going to do for us now?
Yeah. So I'm going to share a poem. It was written about 6 years ago, at the start of when I was doing my PhD. I realized it could be a lot more fun. So I took some time out to work on the grief of the childlessness. PhD was a bit of a plan B midlife crisis thing. And my PhD is about nature and well-being. It's all done now. And there's this idea that engaging with nature's always therapeutic. But there's this place near us in the moors that I had an issue with, that I'd go running there during the grief and it wasn't therapeutic. I found it a really hard place, fell in bog, not great fun, etc. So I went back and I spent the day just walking and writing. And at the end of it, I wrote a larger prose piece, but this is the poem from it. And it's called Absence. The wind is squeezed through hollow tubes of bone as disembodied feet squelch through sodden leaf litter. Alongside water rushes, jarring against my ribbons of fear. Unmarked on the map, you call, go back, go back. The words, I don't belong here, surface upon the black sheen of peat. With every step I erode, the scarring opens. Peat hags summon, 1, 2, 3. Memories probing. Fat drops of oxygenated red smack against the grey gritstone. Their tendrils snare me. Alone, I rest against walled stone. A disenfranchised scream reverberates. I never aimed for here. A rush down and a wish to leave the ethereal behind.
Thank you. How does it make you feel when you say that and read that out now? Does it?
It's interesting because I did record it because it was for a single round sense in nature, so they wanted an audio. It's only writing it down today for this webinar and reading it. There's certain things like I don't belong here. That's clearly about childlessness, not just about being on a moor that's used for grouse shooting. And things like the tendril snare means like all the sort of bits of heather, that the roots of heather you see. And the disenfranchised scream relates to like a runner went up there where I ended up just screaming into like the air and these grouse flying up. And it's sort of strange, like how much it can bring back for me. But it's also, I don't know, I can see the childlessness in it, but I can also see that from it I could create something that it doesn't sound that healing in there, but it did certainly start for me to understand my relationship with that place or my relationship with my grief. And I think that's quite a personal thing that maybe someone else wouldn't read into it, but I suppose that's part of art sometimes. And I do tend to write quite abstractly, so maybe that wouldn't be clear to others. But yeah, so yeah, part of me is like, ooh, it's quite obvious. Another part of me is like, ooh, the healing there might not be so obvious, which is quite interesting.
But it's quite good because, like you say, you can see the grief, but you can also see the positives and where it can go to from now, which is what we want to sort of focus on a little bit more, because we've said, you know, how we envision the future as parents, how that changed when we suddenly realised we'd never be parents. And obviously, Kiara's song and your poem was sort of at that time when the grief was there, but now on reflection, you can see more in it. So, having just said that, you know, I'm thinking, what is it that you're actually all finding now that are positives in your life? What can you see about your life that is good rather than bad? Do you know what I mean? What are you sort of like enjoying now or discovering about yourself? Are you the same person, or not the same person, but the same original person, going back to things that interested you? Are you discovering new things about yourself? You know, what's happening in your life that is actually now positive and you can sort of celebrate a little bit? Anybody like to start, or should I pick on you? Yeah, would you like to? Because obviously you've done your song as well, so you've got that sort of a little bit of reflection there.
I'm happy to go because the internet is working in case it stops. Yeah, it's funny because I was in a bit of a sort of perhaps a strange situation in that I'd already kind of started. I was a doctor for a long time, and I didn't really want to be a doctor. I wanted to be a songwriter, and I'd already kind of started pursuing that when the whole thing kind of hit me that, you know, I wasn't going to have kids. And I looked into adopting, and I was single at the time, and I kind of had to make this decision about whether I was going to do that on my own. And if I reckon that if I did it, that would be the end of the music. You know, I would just need to carry on being a GP part-time, and that would fit in with a child and that kind of thing. And I think in my heart of hearts, I couldn't face doing it on my own anyway. You know, I kind of always thought it would be a family, you know, a unit thing, not just me. But I also felt like I couldn't, and I didn't want to let go of the point that I got to with my music, because I thought if I was going to adopt a child on my own and go back to doing GP all the time, I just thought actually I'd be really miserable. And I didn't think that was a very good way to bring up a child. So it's kind of funny because I suppose I'd already sort of started doing it, and I guess I was lucky in that sense that I had something to develop, you know. And it's not like I'd been trying to have kids for years, and I had to sort of reinvent myself. But I think that, yeah, I think that it goes. I think things are a lot better than they were, but I think that sort of finding that space for yourself, or speaking personally, can still be quite difficult, sort of navigating all the different situations. And I do think that a lot of people, and I probably would have been the same, that have kids possibly think that it must be hard when you're around little children and that's it. But it kind of goes on, really, doesn't it? And maybe I get better at dealing with that. But I also probably take for granted the fact that I have time to do my music.
Yeah.
You know, and I look around and I see that lots of people that have kids can't do that. So interesting what you were saying, Anne, about the I think I very much idealized what it would be to be a parent and the family life, and there probably wouldn't be any time to do my music. So that's
It's giving you that freedom to hopefully to do what you love,
yeah,
to develop it, and it's
and
not
not always have to put yourself at the bottom of the pile, which is, I suppose, what a lot of parents do, you know. And a lot of, for me, I'm very lucky to have a lot of nieces and nephews, and my relationships with them are important. And where there was a while that I couldn't even face seeing them, I couldn't face going home, and that's in the past now. So that's good, you know. But it's still, you know, it's still gets you quite often, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's we as long as we accept that,
Yeah,
it's better
you're right.
because again we can't bury it because it'll just build up again and explode. Whereas if you accept it, like you said, that there are going to be down days or moments that you can sort of like reflect on it or allow yourself to have, a bit of self-care or indulgence and sit in a corner, and if you have to cry, then cry. But we know that it can get better again because we've already had those better days.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think certainly in the depth of my grief, I think I knew it was going to get better, but I just couldn't imagine it
Yeah.
feeling any different, because it went on so long. Whereas now, yeah, it's like, it's much more, it's gonna pass, yeah, at some point.
And the music, it's moved on that you're not so much every song is about
Yeah.
childless as well. So you've got that sort of you've changed and moved forward in that sense, haven't you?
Yeah, I think there's only one song that I've just got lots of songs about broken relationships, but that's the same for every album. That continues. But yeah, definitely yeah, that, and that's probably a very good measure of things having moved on. Sometimes you don't look back enough to realize you have moved on, do you? You don't do that enough, maybe,
But I
to
think looking
appreciate.
back is the best way to see you've gone forward.
Yeah, it's true.
It really does. Makes you reflect on things. Okay, yeah, I can see it now. I couldn't see positives, but if I look at what I was doing yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, actually today's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel on this, Annie? Would you like to share?
Yeah, I completely agree with that actually. So I mean, I mentioned earlier that I'd had like quite a tough week at work because there's a bit of a baby boom and there were kind of baby photos in my inbox and that kind of thing. And although I found it upsetting, by 9:30 I was back, to my normal self and getting on with my day's work rather than in floods of tears in the toilets or going home or leaving my job and sitting on a sofa for a year. So, so definitely, I guess a positive, maybe a positive is that I'm at a more resilient person now. I don't think you have to be resilient all the time, but I think I am a more resilient person. I think, and I think a lot of people who've been through what we've been through will agree that it's a transformational experience being childless not by choice as much as having children is for people who have children. Um, and I have so many friends in the childless not by choice community and also in the child-free communities as well that I just think it would be awful. How awful would it be if I'd never met those people? I value my friends in that community so much that I think, gosh, if I'd had children, I would never have met the amazing people that I've met through this community. So that for me is such a huge positive. And I think also the room that I'm in now, that you can hopefully all see me in, it was going to be my children's nursery, but it ended up being the room that I wrote my novel in. And um, people have written to me, childless people have written to me from all over the world to say that the book moved them, and I wouldn't have been able to write that book if I hadn't been through what I went through. So I guess I mean maybe it's a cliche, but we're all kind of built out of our experiences. So if I hadn't had that experiences, I wouldn't be who I am now. And I'm not perfect, but I kind of like who I am or who I've become. Maybe I wouldn't have been a great mother, I don't know, but I think I'm a pretty good childless person. Um, in terms of plans for going forwards, I just I just want to be ordinary, really. I don't have any great kind of designs to do anything extraordinary. I just want to be ordinary and hang out with my dogs and go for walks on the beach and watch movies with my husband, that kind of thing. I'm really happy just to be ordinary. I am writing another book, which I'm really excited about a childless person. another childless person. So 2 books about childlessness. And I was worried about that. Can I do that? Can I write about childlessness twice? But people write
Yes.
about motherhood twice, don't they?
Yes.
So that's, I'm really excited about that. And it's fair to say I do have more time to write, as Kira has more time for music. So I can put those things,
More time to faff and procrastinate.
that's true for me as well. Yeah.
I can do that one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think definitely if I kind of could sum that question up, if I hadn't been through that experience of wanting so much to be a parent and not becoming one, there would be so many things in my life, friends and things that I've done I wouldn't have. That I wouldn't know that I missed them, but I value them a lot now, so I'm glad that I have them.
Yeah, no, it's really good to hear that. Like you say, the fact that you've got a room, but you, from something that was sad, you've made it into a positive space. It's created an amazing piece of work, and will create more. Do you know what I mean? So you've changed it. You've changed the atmosphere of what the room would have been when it was happy, and then it was sad, and then it's come happy again. So it's really nice that you're creating that space that's full of positives and love for you and what you do. I like that. Yeah.
It's a different path, isn't it? It's like a different. It's I feel when you're speaking there, and it's like it's talking about being on a different path than the one you imagined, and it's no less good for it's just a different one.
Yeah. When we didn't envision, that's the difference, isn't it? We just didn't see it in front of us.
No.
Even when we're grieving, we didn't.
We thought we'd be on the other one, but we're on this one, yeah.
They're the unexpected ones. So sometimes it's unexpected twists and turns that are quite good, quite positive for us. Yeah.
Someone in the chat has mentioned about looking for glimmers, and I really relate to that. Yeah, glimmers in my life are amazing.
Yeah. It's recognizing them, holding on to them, and not just forgetting, which sometimes when we're feeling low, we can easily just push them aside and like not realize they're even there. And then you think, hang on a minute, the other day I thought this, or I saw that, or I did this, and it's like, yeah, they're good. And it's like, start storing them up instead of push a little bit more of that grief away, and we'll wrap it with some glimmers, and hopefully, don't dismiss it, but soften it perhaps. How about you, Andy? What are your thoughts and positives in your life at the moment?
Before we go on to the positives, I think the essence of who I am is always been there. I think mine got lost at times. I definitely feel like I'm still a messy, complex being. I think there's always a sense that I was moving towards something, but that's perhaps just me. Always moving to be like a person who was creative, who was alive, who cared. And I think I just assumed all that care, that desire to nurture would just go into my kids and hopefully make them the best possible people. And I think perhaps through the research, because it's around nature, but more as landscapes, there's definitely been a shift towards animals. They've always been important in my life, but there's something about more care towards them, more compassion, and definitely part of going vegetarian, vegan, in terms of diet, etc. But also in terms of sort of being more active and more action. So there is a positive in the sense of perhaps there's more time to engage with that, to think about that. I wouldn't have started a PhD if we had kids, because I couldn't have took the pay cut to do that. And then that opened up much more opportunities, and that was part of the reason for doing it was, well, if life hadn't took me down this path, which was perhaps a nice easy route up to the top of the mountain, and I'm now scrambling up and slipping down scree all the time, perhaps it's worth just seeing where this path goes. And I think that was one of the reasons I applied for the PhD and then got it in the funding was, well, let's just see what happens, and let's see what happens at the end of it or during it to create opportunities. And through it, been to Orkney a couple of times, which reminds me of Annie's book and like some of the folk tales up there. There's like crossovers of the Hollow Sea. And now I'm sort of like lecturing to students, and it's about things sort of, it's more political, it's more social, but you can see the patriarchy, you can see the pronatalism, and it sits, and we talk about decolonizing knowledge and embrace indigenous knowledges and sort of being more on the left and the right, etc., in terms of politics. But there's a sense of like, well, what can I offer students? What can I offer about how we understand our world through geography, do geography, um, and give something back to them that perhaps I would have done on a very small scale with my own kids or a small group. And so I think there was something about the core of nurture staying, but perhaps I'm offering it in different ways, which when you're in the grief, I never saw that as an option of a way of offering nurture and actually becoming more politically, socially engaged, be it around animals, be it around patriarchy, pronatalism, would actually be a way to sort of express care and nurture and not just sort of rally against the state of our world. And I think also when you're in the grief, I don't think there'd be opportunities that I'd be in a place where I could apply to and then go off and do things because it just felt like that would be too big a mountain to climb. But somewhere along the way, that really dodgy ski path turned into an all right path. And I don't know if we ever get to the top of the mountain, not this imaginary mountain. But I think there's a place on it where I've had some good views along the way. There's been some good stopping off places, perhaps a nice town to sit by, watch the world. And yeah, I think looking to the future, something I've never really done. It's a bit like the fantasy parenthood dream. That's a really good word from Annie about it being a fantasy. Is like perhaps the future is more about ready to embrace the unfolding of it, to see what happens. And when you're in the grief, it's almost like, for me at least, as a running away, it's like, well, what can I do so I don't live with this pain? And there's almost a fear the elastic would snap one day and just run. Where now I feel like if I ran, it'd be more of an adventure. It'd be more like, well, where can I go? What can I see? What can I make the most of? Rather than away from, I'd be running to. I think that is perhaps the positive, the future is that somewhere in there is like a sense of, well, what can I make life if life isn't what I assumed it'd be? Well, what can I do with this freedom which we all do have more of, knowing people are parents, is like, what can I make the best of it so I can live well, but also perhaps help others live well, I guess.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
giving you, like, I think with all of you in a way, because of that responsibility isn't there, there's a little bit more freedom. And I'm not saying everybody's got that, but there's a little bit more freedom and flexibility in life to actually try and do the things that we enjoy. You
Yeah.
might not know exactly where it's going, but as you said, I like the fact you like, you can stop and admire the view.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's a really good way of saying it. And sometimes, like you say, it's not such a big thing as that. It could be literally your gardening, and you can imagine
Mm.
like a new plant, and you're watching that plant grow and thrive, and it's admiring the garden as it grows. It doesn't have to be big things. Yeah, but it's a really nice idea that is that it's take it in stages still. It doesn't have to be an end
Mm.
destination in sight. It's just, take it day by day or week by week.
And I
I like
think
that.
it's,
Yeah.
thank you. And I think it is definitely about, there feels more choice now of what I'm trying to do rather than beforehand. It felt very choiceless.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make the best of a real mess.
Yeah.
And it wasn't probably even the best, it's probably just trying to survive.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. In the grief, you're just getting through it minute by minute sometimes, you're not even day by
Mm.
day. But yeah, having that choice, a little bit of choice and freedom is good. But I'm going to go back to Annie now and say, would you like to introduce and then do your reading for us, please?
Thank you, Steph. So I'm going to read a short excerpt from my novel, The Hollow Sea. This is the book that I was referring to earlier that I was writing in this room while I was kind of healing from the shock of not becoming a parent. I like to describe The Hollow Sea as a book about childlessness. My publisher likes to describe it as a book about mythology, and reviewers like to describe it as a book about motherhood. So it's something for everyone. But this excerpt is from the penultimate chapter, so apologies for spoilers, and I've edited it slightly to take out everything that won't make sense if you haven't read the preceding 350 pages. We kayak around the island to the south side until we find a beach with no hauled out seals. 4 years to the day since egg retrieval, the day our embryos, the lost ones and the ones remaining in cryogenic suspension, had been made. I take out my letters, handwritten on some crumpled airmail paper I found at the back of the writing bureau. One to Alice, one to my embryos and other ghost children, and one, which Jasminda doesn't know about, to my mother. Writing them was harder than I'd thought it would be. I had sat for an hour or more staring at the semi-transparent blue sheets. In the end, I had started each one with "I love you" and let the words flow from there. I didn't edit, but let the words stay as they fell onto the page from my pen. Jasminda has one letter in a plain brown envelope, which makes me smile because it is so like him to write the most important letter of his life using the same paper and envelope he would use to write to his bank manager. "Are you ready?" he says. I nod, and he gets out the small ceramic bowl he has brought with him. He wedges the bowl in the sand, and we put our letters inside, my 3 and his 1. He holds up a cigarette lighter and crouches beside the bowl. "Do you think this is okay?" I say. "Should we have got a permit or something?" He ignites the lighter, shielding it from the breeze. "Let's live dangerously." The letters catch immediately, blackening around the edges, an orange flame licking up. He takes my hand, all those words, words from the deepest places in our hearts, turning to ash. We watch them burn. We wade out into the ocean, protected from the worst of the chill by our wetsuits. "Do you want to say anything?" he asks. I shake my head. I have no words left in me. Jasminda rests the bowl of ashes on the soft, swelling surface of the ocean. He pushes one edge of the bowl down. Water swirls in, caressing the ashes at first, then taking them. Jasminda is saying something in Punjabi, a language he rarely speaks in front of me. I don't understand his words, but they have the cadence of a prayer. My tears flow freely. The bowl is clean of ashes. The ocean has taken them, gifted them to the tides, all our words and dreams and hopes and grief set free. I asked Jasminda if he found it difficult to write to our never-to-be conceived children. My letter wasn't to them, he says. It was to you, the old you, the version of you who thought she could never be anything, never be worth anything if she wasn't a mother. I wanted to say goodbye because I loved her, but you're someone new now. Do you feel that? What do you mean? It's a good sort of new, Scotty, and it's not just you, it's both of us. We can grieve for our old selves while we're creating the new. Jasminda uses his thumbs to brush the last tears from my cheeks. He kisses me on the mouth in a way he hasn't kissed me for I can't remember how long. I think he might be wrong about the old versions of us being lost. Those versions of us are still here, battered, bruised. We're creating something new from them, transforming them as we heal. There are dolphins zigzagging in the bay, silver fins cutting through silver water. We leave the beach as we found it, unmarked, belonging only to seals and seabirds.
Wow. So apt. So beautiful for, perfect description for exactly what we've been discussing tonight. Yeah, you can see a lot of people are reacting to that, and of all the thoughts, it all meant something. And it's really weird. The one word that stuck out of my head was edit. And we can't change the past, but we can change the present and change the future.
It's funny because when you invited me to take part in this webinar, I knew immediately that would be the excerpt that I would read.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it for 2 years. The book was published 2 years ago, so longer than 2 years since I did the last edit of the book. So it's been a while, and I had to rehearse it a few times because I got quite emotional when the first time I rehearsed it. Thank you so much for kind of giving me the opportunity, because that would not really normally be an excerpt that I would read out because it's from the end of the book. Normally I read something from the beginning, so it's really lovely to have that opportunity to consider that side of our stories.
Yeah, because like I say, it's the end of the book, but it is the beginning of a new future, which is what we're doing. Do you know what I mean? So, like you said, lots of people, I could feel the emotions rising as well. So yeah.
Somebody said to me that the book had a really sad ending, but I disagree with that. And that because they didn't have a baby, but to me, it's not a sad ending at all. It's a really positive, hopeful one.
Yeah.
And hopefully, most people will read it in that way.
Yeah, and I think people who are childless will understand it as well. It's got a lot of deep meaning
It's
there.
interesting because that's saying that it has a sad ending is a bit like what we're expect. It's like a Disney thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like happy ending, sad ending. Just because what you expect doesn't happen, rather than seeing that it's actually much. It's not that, is it? It's coming through a situation and what happens beyond that. But that's somebody's, yeah, that just is like the whole thing about happy and sad endings.
I think we're so conditioned to expecting a miracle baby at the end of any kind of story about not about childlessness and infertility, that it can be a bit of a shock to people from outside of our community who read the book. People from inside of the community get it,
Yeah.
but I think it's been more of a struggle for maybe some people outside of the community who've never really thought about these issues before. But I have had really good feedback from parents as well to say it's helped them to understand more, and that's
That's great. That's so great.
it's good to hear that.
It's really interesting. I haven't read the book, and I always meant to write a review because I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
But to have a baby at the end would feel really jarring. Like it just wouldn't fit story, the narratives. Where that ending, it fits really well. And it's sort of like, I find that really interesting that it was so ingrained for the Miracle Baby story that people still suggest it, even when you've read the book and you can see they're like two different stories. They don't go. That's really interesting. But yeah, if you haven't read the book, definitely go off and read it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we could talk on more, and I'd like to, but because we're sort of coming up on being on here for an hour, Kiara, can I ask you now to do your other song for us, please, before we sort of do a final summary of what we've all felt from tonight?
Sure. Okay. This song is from a new album that I've just released a couple of months ago, and it's called Empty Sky. And I wrote it. I went to a songwriting weekend just after, I think it was like the end of January a few years ago. And I kind of still struggle quite a lot with Christmas. And normally when I get into the beginning of January, I'm fine. But this particular year, it was like a hangover. It just carried on. And so we were given a brief, we were given a title we had to write a song about, and the title was Empty Sky. And I just thought, oh, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? But anyway, so it's basically, I realized after I wrote it, it's about the words that I needed to hear myself. So it's about self-compassion, and it's a kind of song to myself, if you see what I mean. Right, I'm going to move over into the the other mode. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Empty Sky. I know it isn't what you wanted. It isn't what you dreamed when you were young and drawing pictures of life and how it seemed. Is it heavy like a burden? Do you feel it in your bones? Whichever way you see it, you're alone. It's a long road on an empty sky. It gets hard to carry on when there's nowhere or when, only why. I will hold you, I will hold you, just what you're thinking? What if it's all down to you? How you could have done things different, and the stars might shine on you. And every time you go there, do you lose a little heart? It's a long road on an empty sky. It gets hard to carry on when there's nowhere or when, only why. I will hold you, I will hold you until you stand again. I will hold you, I will hold you till you stand again.
Thank you again. And like I said, the words in that we can interpret, do you know what I mean, to sort of suit us and how we are. And like, we do hold each other up. We do support each other. And like I say, going back to the long road, which is what it's been like for all of us to go through this grief and stuff. But no, it's beautiful. Thank you so much again, Chiara, for doing that for us. Just before we say goodnight, would you all like to say one last thing that perhaps is a positive you've felt in your life, or a positive or something that you can say to who's with us still to sort of perhaps uplift them and give them those positives going forward? Annie, have you got something you'd like to say?
I guess I would maybe just like to reiterate that whatever experiences that you've had and whatever you've been through, that's made you the amazing person that you are today, and that's an amazing and that's a positive thing. And you know, I think we should sounds a bit of a cliche, but I just think we should be kind and compassionate to ourselves and love ourselves and love who we've become through our journey. Sorry, that does sound a bit like a bit of a cliche, but I can't think of another way to put it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad you said compassion and kindness, because I was thinking something around embracing our life as it unfolds with care and compassion, because we may not be creating the life we assumed we would, but we still create, we still live, and we still touch other people. And I think because of what we've gone through, perhaps at times that our care compassion can be hard on ourselves. Actually, with care and compassion, we treat each other better. And I feel like one thing I really like about the childless community is the community we build. There's a lot of love and care there, and I think that's the thing. Offer ourselves the same love and care as we offer others, and yeah, we'll live good lives.
Chiara?
Yeah, all of that. And I do think, yeah, when you connect with people in the childless community, it kind of starts with compassion almost, doesn't it? And, you know, because you're meeting them probably because of your experience, which is not really how it is with other people. And I think it's incredible how close you can feel and compassionate. So yeah, that and I would say sort of don't bury your grief, you know, seek out people from that community to talk to about it, and you know, it just share it, and yeah, I kind of have to constantly remind myself to be compassionate. It's like a job, you know. So yeah, just keep doing it, because as Annie and Andy said that who we've become through this, to be compassionate towards that person rather than what we're not, is a wonderful way to be.
It's recognizing the grief, but it's also recognizing the self-worth.
Yes, absolutely.
And each one is honourable, and each one, there'll be days when one overpowers the other.
Yes.
Don't deny the grief is there still, but don't deny the worth in you as well, and the adventures and the excitement and the little glimmers
Yeah.
that can help you through each day. Like you say, keep looking at the view as you climb that mountain as well. I think that's a brilliant way of saying it. But yeah, so I want to say an amazing thank you to all three of you for joining me tonight. It's been lovely to hear the things that you do, the music, the poems, the writing, but have a discussion about, like you say, how our vision of the future was, how it turned out, and how in the end we've actually found some really good positives in there. And that's what we've got to look forward to, and other things that we don't even know yet. There's still things to discover out there. And I think that's the thing, it's not blocking the future, it's opening the doors. Even though sometimes swing you backwards and forwards and things like that, and just knowing that forwards can be a gorgeous place to be, and somewhere you can feel safe and confident and happy again. Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for inviting us.
Loved it.
And thank you to everyone in the comments as well. I haven't
Yeah.
been able to reply to many of them, but I've read them all, and I really appreciate the fact that people have said such lovely things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you ever so
Yes,
much for
thank
coming and supporting us, because that's the thing as well. We said about support, people being here to listen tonight is support. And
Yeah.
like you said, it doesn't have to be a big thing, does it? It can be a little thing, and
Yeah.
it makes a difference.
Witnessing, isn't it? It's yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. All right then, well, thank you ever so much for that tonight, as I said, and we shall speak again another time.
Yeah.
you.
Bye.